It began with laughter, the kind that stings more than words ever could. The live audience of Star Quest, a popular talent show filmed in Los Angeles, erupted in quiet chuckles when an elderly woman named Margaret Hale, 78 years old, stepped onto the brightly lit stage. Her silver hair was pinned neatly in a bun, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted the microphone. "Name?" the host asked with a smirk. "Margaret Hale," she said softly. "I'll be playing the piano." The judges exchanged glances. One whispered, "Hope she can reach the keys." The audience laughed again. If you believe true kindness always finds its way back, please tap the like button now and subscribe to support more stories like this. Margaret didn't flinch. Her calm gaze drifted across the theater, where a few people had already looked down at their phones, clearly expecting another forgettable audition. But there was something in her eyes, a quiet fire, the kind only years of pain, perseverance, and purpose could create. The stage assistant rolled in a grand piano. Margaret walked slowly toward it, each step echoing across the silent floor. When she sat down, her hands hovered above the keys for a moment. Then, without warning, the first notes filled the hall, soft, haunting, impossibly precise. The laughter stopped. Her fingers danced, weaving through the melody of Clair de Lune by Debussy. It wasn't just beautiful, it was alive. Every note carried emotion, grief, joy, loss, love. Her hands, weathered and lined with age, moved with the grace of someone who had spent a lifetime in love with music. As she played, flashes of her past flickered through her mind. The church choir where she first played at 16. The small music store she owned in Iowa for 40 years before the economy forced her to close it. The husband she lost to cancer. The students she taught for free when their parents couldn't afford lessons. And most of all, the silence that filled her life after losing her home last year, when her fixed income wasn't enough to cover rising rent. Playing the piano again tonight wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about remembering who she was. The final note hung in the air, trembling like a breath before a tear. Then, absolute silence. For a full 10 seconds, no one moved. Even the judges, known for their harsh critiques, sat frozen. Then came the sound of clapping. One person, then another, until the entire audience was on their feet. Some were crying. The host returned to the stage, visibly shaken. "Ms. Hale, that was," he stopped, his voice cracking. "That was extraordinary." Margaret smiled gently. "Music," she said, "isn't about perfection. It's about heart. And kindness, that's the same way." Her words were simple, but they struck deeply. The crowd erupted again. One of the judges, a younger pop star named Lila Carter, stood and wiped her eyes. "Ms. Hale," she said, "on behalf of everyone who underestimated you, including me, I'm sorry." She walked to the piano and hugged her. "You reminded us why we started doing this." The clip went viral overnight. Within hours, #Margaret Hale trended across social media. Millions watched her play, millions more shared her words about kindness. But what happened next was even more incredible. A local music charity started a fundraiser to help her. Within 3 days, donations poured in from all over the country, enough to get her a small home, a new piano, and to reopen her free community lessons for children. When a news reporter later asked why she thought people responded so strongly, Margaret said softly, "Because kindness doesn't die. It just waits, sometimes in silence, until someone listens." Weeks later, StarQuest invited her back as a guest performer for the season finale. This time, she wasn't just another contestant. She sat center stage beside a young boy. One of her new students, 10-year-old Ethan, whose family had struggled to afford piano lessons. Together, they played a duet. Halfway through, Margaret paused, letting Ethan finish the piece on his own. The crowd rose once again, the applause rolling like a wave. It wasn't just for her talent, it was for her courage, her dignity, her kindness. When the camera zoomed in, tears glistened in her eyes. "I thought my life was over," she whispered into the mic, "but maybe it was just beginning again." We'd love to hear your story. What is the most memorable act of unexpected kindness you have witnessed or received? Share it in the comments below. That night, across America, countless people felt something stir, a reminder that worth has no age, and kindness has no expiration date. As the credits rolled, Margaret stood backstage, looking out at the cheering audience. For the first time in years, she felt truly seen, not for what she'd lost, but for what she'd never stopped giving. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to help spread more stories of real kindness and second chances. Because sometimes, the quietest hearts create the loudest miracles.